Hello and welcome to the 4th season of Fox and Talen talking about the seasonal anime of 2024. And boy howdy, if the pickings were slim, they are transparent now. Hi, I'm Talen.
And I'm Fox.
I'm a he, him.
And I'm a Shia.
And I mean, this is a slightly different version of what we've done for the previous three, because the previous three videos were recorded pretty much all at the same time, like within a week of each other, while we waited for this season of anime to be done. Then this season of anime was done, and we spent the first 2 weeks of 2025 watching them and determining what was good. And the thing is, that doesn't work infrastructurally if there were a lot of good shows. Which is why we were mercifully spared that problem coming up by what 2024 had to offer in its final season.
Good news, I guess.
Nonetheless, we did get to the obligatory, there are at least 3 good ones. Well, there are 3 that I put on the thumbnail.
It's definitely 2 good ones.
Shall we get into it? These are going to be discussed in... originally it was broadcast order. In this case, for such a small collection, I just went with the order I want to bother talking about them.
Boy, I just looked at the list. This is so short.
Yep.
Oh well. Let's pause for some bonus dog content. Hi, Ellie. It's okay. Good boy. Aw, he came right back, even though that neighbor dog was yelling right back at him.
This has been your bonus dog content. Also, the dog then went immediately to the kitchen to stand by the place where he gets treats. So, well, he knows. He knows what's up.
He was a very good boy.
We are doing anything we can to stretch this video. You see, in a more populated season, I would have just restarted, and we would have done that without that. But no, this time we're doing it this way.
We're doing it live.
There you go.
Besides which, and told people are disappointed if there's no accidental dog content in our videos.
It is a strange thing. Ellie is the true star of the channel.
Yeah. I wish we had dog cam. Unfortunately, the lighting in this place is not good enough for any cam, let alone dog cam.
It's true. So, first up, we have Blue Box.
This is Ao no Hako.
Blue Box is the story of a dude who plays badminton, who has a crush on a girl in his school who plays basketball, and upon whom a crush is had by a girl who does rhythmic gymnastics. These sports are not relevant to the plot of this show, and I am deeply disappointed. Still, it has a different hook, which is, whilst this guy is fantasizing about winding up in a relationship with cool basketball team girl, he winds up imagining, what would it be like if we had a married life together? Only to come home one day to find her living in his house, because her family are traveling overseas, and she is staying with them, because her mother and his mother are friends. A fact that never came up in his life prior to this point.
I mean, I guess it wouldn't. Do you know all your mum's friends?
It's true. I don't necessarily know all my mum's friends, and I don't live in a city with 16 million people within 1 square block. I don't know. I don't know. Look, Blue Box is an aggressively fine romantic media anime. Right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. We watched all of it.
We watched all of the first core, but I'm not going back for the second.
It looks very pretty. It's rendered in a lovely style with a lot of detail to the color and especially the eyes. Gosh, anime eyes have gotten pretty these days. At least when they're not doing weird shaped highlights that make them look inhuman. I don't care for those.
It is a collaboration that includes Pine Jam. So it's definitely like a heavy hitters kind of the visual elements. So I am a big fan of games in media when they are represented well, and because I love that being done well, I excoriate that which does it badly.
Uh-huh.
There is a book called Gaming the Stage by Gina Bloom, which amongst other things has this interesting layout of 7 protocols for determining how a game is being used in a show or in a piece of media that I feel serves as a good checklist for asking yourself as a storyteller, like, am I telling a story that needs this game element, or am I just telling a story that could be about anything? Blue Box could be about anything.
Oh, yeah, this is not... This sort of fakes being a sports anime,
Yeah.
but if you didn't realize going in that it wasn't a sports anime, you'd work it out pretty quickly. The stakes are not about the things that matter in a sports anime. The pacing is not the way pacing works in a sports anime.
Yeah.
And the games don't matter except in as much as they are baby's first metaphor for romantic relationships. Like, for reals. They go in really hard on the imagery of, but what if the person who is my rival in the sport is also my rival in the love?
Yeah, it's sad too, because when pitched to me, I admit I ran away with what I thought this was going to be about, because those 3 sports, rhythmic gymnastics, badminton, and basketball, are wildly different, and it's girls' basketball too, which is even further different because girls' basketball has specific rules about checking and presence.
I mean, almost all girl-specific versions of sports have some kind of rule about how you're allowed to fight less.
Yeah, and what that means in this context is that you have... hypothetically, the structure that it outlays in my brain is you have the main character who exists in a sport that is about 2 people versus 2 people. So it's always like, I in relationship to my partner. Are we covering each other? Are we taking care of each other? What do I understand of them? How does the game help me understand them?
Well, or one-on-one. Like, that's
or one-on-one.
just as common.
That's true, but that's also a more boring take on it. At that point, it's like, I am the boy and I am a competitor. Which, yeah, whatever. Whereas...
me suggest this game is boring in its approach to the sports?
Yeah. And then you have the basketball girl, whose whole gimmick is, I am not just a member of the basketball team, I am a leader in that basketball team. So my vision of the game is not just execution-based, but strategic. And I need to connect to and relate to 6 other people at any given point in time. And that's really different to the rhythmic gymnastics, who is competing ostensibly against only herself and her best possible execution of what she did last time. And these are 3 really different games that you could do a lot to dig into and explore, and this show doesn't care about any of them, and kind of yada 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 is the one sport it shows you. You don't watch a lot of badminton in this show that's about a guy playing badminton, which is really embarrassing.
Most of the actual games are skipped.
Yeah.
Like, that we
see
see
the
the lead into them, we see people talking about how they're probably going to go, and then generally we cut to a brutal finish.
Yeah. And it's sad, because of course it never promised me that, except in how it did promise that. If you watch the trailer and the opening, those sports are prominent, and they don't matter to the story, because this is not a show that cares about those things. And as a result, what you get is the same wishy-washy, weak sauce anime romance of what if teenagers weren't good at talking about their feelings, which is true, but I could not be more bored with it.
I do think that they use those sports well as metaphors for the important things about their characters and how they interact with other people in the world around them. The problem is that's the only way.
Yeah.
They use it, like, that's really good. That's a really good metaphor. But in order for the metaphor to be what it wants to be, you need the literal thing to be important.
Yeah.
So as we don't immediately see the metaphor and go, well...
Yeah.
I wonder if you're friends with everyone, so it's hard to pin down how you feel about an individual, and you are isolated in a world where you compare yourself to other people constantly, but never experience direct confrontation.
Yeah. And also, I guess in addition to all this, like, the approaches these school clubs have to their sports is fucking horrifying.
Oh, it's the whole school sports thing is kind of gross. I mean, one of them is a rhythmic gymnast, so...
Yeah. She's already in food jail.
And that is a problematic sport. Like, it does...
Uh-huh.
Gymnastics does bad things to people's bodies as a rule.
Yeah. Look at these amazing feats we were able to get this 14-year-old to abuse herself into being capable of doing.
I was gonna say, and the bodies of tiny girls in particular.
Yeah.
You know, in general, the sports anime vibe, one of the only things this does actually play straight from sports anime is just that everyone always believes they are not working hard enough all the time, and they're usually right because that's inspiring or something. So, when you're not being caught up in the magic of sports anime where the only thing that matters is the sport, that hits different. It hits a lot more like, your lives are kind of fucked up, right? Like, your relationships with these sports are not entirely healthy, right? We all know this. And, you know, if you're watching a Haikyuu, that's fine, because the reality of that world is one where volleyball is more important than life.
But I didn't want to invoke the specter of Haikyuu.
Sure.
Because it is deeply unfair to a thing that clearly never tried to be a real sports anime to compare it to one of the best in show. But while we're here...
I am doing so purely for the sake of talking about how this differs from a sports anime and why that hits kind of weird.
But here's the thing. Name a character in Haikyuu who doesn't like playing volleyball. Because there's one, and you know what happens by the end of Haikyuu? He fucking loves volleyball.
I'm trying to remember who that is.
It is my favorite moment in that whole anime. It's just one point. This is just one game.
Of course.
This is just one block. And then he drops and he screams in joy. It is the best part of a show full of the best parts. Everyone in that gives a shit about the thing they're doing. In this, I don't think this guy gives a shit about the girl he's got a crush on.
It's a very adolescent romance anime, and while I normally,
which is fair,
I think have a decent tolerance for those, this one just continually got on my tits, with, like, the excuses he comes up with.
Yeah, I must keep the plot plate spinning somehow.
And, like, we know it's in service of the plot, but, like, it just, after a while, it just feels like he's trying very hard to not do anything about this crush, to the point where it's like, you really ought to be reflecting on that and asking yourself if this really is what you think it is, because you seem to want to avoid it really badly.
And what's deeply messed with this is this show got 2 cores. This show is going to 24 episodes. It didn't have enough juice for 10.
Well, I mean, you say that, but it's not like it came to any kind of conclusion or even a resting point at the end of that first core.
Because nothing happened.
In fact, I thought he was going to be just a full piece of shit, because the first core ends on him going on a date with the other girl who obviously can't win.
Yeah.
And just sort of getting detached from her and fucking forgetting about her halfway through. And I really thought it was going to be a callback to the earlier scene where she arrives late and misses out. And like, oh, but this time it's metaphor.
It also has... I'm going to use a loaded term here. And I want to make it clear. If you like this show, I'm not saying you're bad for liking it. But
no, it's not.
It is a deeply misogynistic show in that the women are beautiful. The women are exquisitely detailed in how they are drawn. The women's appearances betray care and active effort in looking good. And what those women are doing and their inner lives are secondary and not particularly well explored, while the guy's inner life is extremely deeply examined, even though he is himself a bucket of wallpaper paste. And men in this show are largely generic, plain, and do not put effort into their appearance.
Our male lead is profoundly the weak point of this. I think I could get into everything else that's happening, but he is simultaneously boring and hornier than I would like, and wussier than I would like.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. He's, at a point you start feeling like a caterer who never groups.
Yeah, it is... Ironically, the invocation of love, Hina, is a lot closer to the species of what this thing is, but it's not trying to be funny, and it's not trying to do fan service.
Yeah.
So when you take those elements away from a show like Love, Hina, and then take away, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the effort put into Keitero's appearance, what you're left with is a very weak show. Now, don't get me wrong, some people would like some very mild tea. I imagine if you're feeling pretty emotionally fraught, this show goes down very easy, and I don't want to sit here and say, you shouldn't like this. This isn't a thing that offended me. It annoyed me.
We did spend a lot of time yelling at Chuno, who is our best girl, pink-haired gymnast, that she can just do better.
She can do better.
I mean, they can both do better, but she especially can
Chuno,
do better, because she's not going to win.
Chuno should steal the other girl and win. Like, this guy is present. That's his virtue. And they try and tell you. They have other characters say, oh, I like this detail about you. It's like, why? He doesn't demonstrate that anyway. That hasn't come up before. This conversation is the first... It's a thing that in writing we refer to as an informed attribute, where a character is described in some way by a third party to the audience, so the audience are informed that that's a trait of this character. But then it's not executed on, and you wouldn't know that if the character hadn't told you that. So it's a... Again, I would just run around in loops talking about how badly made this show is, and then come back to, but if you like it, it's okay. Which I imagine at a certain point has to sound insincere.
There's a lot of points where this guy... No, like, because of the living together situation, there are a lot of points where he will, observe a casual interaction or something with this girl who now lives in his house, and will be like, oh, it's just like a married couple, because that turns him on, apparently.
That's his fantasy. That's the fantasy he starts with.
Yeah.
Imagine if this girl who I haven't
Vanilla
spoken
marriage
to...
is his kink.
Yeah, but imagine if this girl I haven't spoken 2 words to was my wife.
But what gets me about... The point where that really made me mad was a scene where she talks to him while brushing her teeth. And he doesn't understand what she's saying. And, like, to me...
That's very funny. I see where you're going.
There is no more, it's as if we're an old married couple moment than when your partner is talking to you with something in their mouth and cannot possibly form words, but you absolutely know what they just said.
We have had conversations where we are brushing our teeth, yes.
Absolutely. And the fact that moment flies over his head, it was just like... That's where it really landed, like, how really childish this character's engagement with romance is, and I just don't like it.
And again, that's okay, he's a child, but also, I want to point out that last year, we were singing the praises of Insomniacs After School, which is also about children and romance and being overwhelmed by big feelings and not being able to handle it well.
Because that felt like real teenager shit.
Skip and Loafer.
Skip and
Loafer would be picking this thing out of its teeth.
We talked about the romance in Beck in the same way. There's some just intensely real shit in those moments, and nothing in this show landed on me with any sincerity. It wasn't a story about how teenagers have stupid, shitty, awkward romances with each other. It's an anime about pretty girls and being in love with them.
Whew. Well, that's 15 minutes of this very thin soup stretched. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Because I have some good news. It is uphill from here.
Yay!
Mecha Ude.
Hey! Mecha Ude.
This seems to be also written... mechanical arms.
Yeah. I think that's a fairly literal translation, but, like, no one uses that from what I can tell, so...
Alright, so, real quick summary of the plot is, it's a shonen anime.
It's hilarious to me that this, like, isn't Trigger and isn't Gynax.
This is extremely Studio Trigger, extremely
Yeah.
Soul Eater at home. But the thing is, it's better than Soul Eater style stuff because, anyway, let me actually give you a plot summary. This is a story about a 20 minutes of the future, sci-fi alternate history Earth, alternate future Earth, where special mechanized, like, symbiotic creatures that look like limbs have become part of a ruling class and basically the obligatory cool super weapon that a very small number of people who will then have very cool battles have, and our protagonist, a very ordinary everyman who isn't secretly the destined lost son of anything.
That's why his name is Hikaru.
Winds up through a happenstance of just good luck and being kind, collecting one of these things that bonds to his hoodie, and that means that he is now traveling around wearing a hoodie that has a giant mecha fist in it that will stick its head out and, you know, in true puppet form, do adorable things and talk to people, and then hide back in his hoodie again. And he meets other users of similar mechanical arms. One of them is a hot girl with two that come out of her thighs who is there to try and beat him up. And then there are ones who turn them into swords. And it is
Some of them are tails.
it is the full laundry list of, we have a power system, we iterate on that power system, and now we have a conclusion where things become wave motion beam cannons. But it only does one wave motion beam cannon at the end.
And who does it?
The villain.
The villain! The hero punches like a good hero.
This anime is a platonic ideal of what it is. A long time ago, I said that... 2 years ago, I said Demon Slayer...
Back in the age of 2022, I think.
23, I think, but yeah.
It was a rough winter, as I recall. The farm was ailing.
Anyway, I refer to Demon Slayer as the perfection of its form, where Demon Slayer took all the story beats that you're used to from that particular type of shonen anime and just instead of having all the bits where it runs around in a circle, just cut them all out. And as a direct result, it's we went through 3 seasons of Bleach in 1 season, and it's good. It's really enjoyable. Mekaude is, what if we do an entire shonen story, a whole My Hero Academia kind of thing, and instead of having 6 seasons designed to spin out infinitely, we just do 1 season and make it all pretty good.
Yeah, you could have pissed about drawing this out, but it would have been much the worse for it.
It's a fascinatingly... because, like, normally with the term we use for this in industry, back when I worked in the toy industry, was toyetic, where you would have things that existed in the series that were there and prominent because they would make good toys to distribute and catch the eye of the consumer. This is a really toyetic show, and I know it was made with no agreement that there would be toys.
No, I mean, I assume this maybe got some figures, but, like, these arms don't exist because they wanted to sell, like, roleplay props to kids.
Yeah.
This is not Power Rangers.
Yeah. And it is an amazing high watermark of an unremarkable thing. It's so hard to properly praise Mekaude because it will not show you anything new. If you know this genre, you're going to watch the first episode and you're probably going to be able to chart out most of the major plot points. But it does it so well.
I couldn't fall in love with this anime.
Yeah.
But there's no universe in which I could dislike this either. If only for just the joy of the animation and the character design and the robots.
That's a huge part of it. Really good CG integration too.
Things are delightful, and they made the very good choice, a very brave, earnest choice, if I may be so bold, to make every one of these robots coming from the alternate world and accidentally making friends with humanity into a total fucking bozo.
Yes. Even the ones that aren't bozos are still dipshits in some way.
And there's one of the main plot points is that the villains like subjugate their will rather than letting them have personalities. So you spend the whole show going, ooh, there's like 5 of these guys here attached to the quirky mini boss squad. But each one of them is a quirky mini-boss as well. When do I get to find out what kind of bozos these are?
It's really fun. It's very... It's the best mid-anime you're gonna watch in 2024. And part of why it gets to be the way it is, I think, is because of the story of how it exists. Which is to say, this is a Kickstarter anime.
I was gonna bring that up, and I believe specifically this was the brainchild of an animation director in particular.
No, the animator.
The-
she did an
yes.
indie animation of this, and then they then animated a pilot on Kickstarter, and then that pilot got picked up and became this.
Basically, what I'm saying is, you remember how I was talking about Elusive Samurai and going, the only reason I can believe that this exists is because somebody really fucking wanted to animate this?
Yeah.
Well, this definitely does exist for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
And it deserves to exist for exactly that reason.
Yeah. Ironically, the girl only exists because a Kickstarter goal got met.
She was a bonus character?
Yeah, it was like, we're going to do
It's a
a
stretch
single
goal.
episode short with these two boys, and if we make enough money, we'll include the girl, and they made enough money, and that's really funny, because she is, one, incredibly important to the plot, and two, a bunch of stuff in the plot wouldn't make sense without her. Not just a matter of, like, she as a person is important to the events, but if you took her out of the world, it's like, hang on, something doesn't make sense anymore. Where does that go? Anyway.
I mean, the nature of this is that the blocks are familiar enough that
Yeah.
you could rearrange them in almost any way if you needed a character to be missing. But it does explain why the other boy just escalates in importance to the plot.
Yeah. One of the things I think is really cool about this, one of the neat tricks it does, is it uses the OP to show status quo. So there comes a point where a
Yeah, that's
character
true.
breaks through a window for the second time. And I think I actually said aloud, like, she's always doing that. It's like, no, she's done it twice, but she does it in every opening, so you know it's normal for how she approaches things. And it's a very cool use of all the parts of the episode that they can use.
Well, they didn't have any time to waste
No.
because this is a pretty tight story.
No
it's not doing
fathom.
anything groundbreaking, but it's doing it quite hard.
Yeah. Exceptionally good at what it is and what it is. It's also it's a pop song. Like, you know, if you like this kind of thing, and if
Yeah,
you like this kind of thing, bam, get it in you. You'll enjoy it.
Like I said, the blocks are familiar, as in they are comforting and enjoyable, and their purpose is not to challenge or upset you or to teach you something new. It is just to let you have fun.
If you aren't, like, if you conspicuously don't like something that this series does, oh dear.
Ellie doesn't like it.
content. Come on, buddy. We're not doing this.
Good boy.
What a good boy. Again, what we are stretching out of this one. The other thing is, if you're not the kind of person who's into this genre, and you might be asking, well, why should I watch this? If you're a big 3D, 2D integration animation nerd, this anime has normally the stance is, well, it's really hard to integrate 3D well, it's really expensive. We know this anime was not expensively made. We know that a lot of what happened here is a good art director making good choices about what to do with the artwork they had. So, like, yes, obviously things like Beastars is doing a very impressive job, but, like, some of it is just making good choices, and
Most of it is in the good choice to have a bunch of characters who are charismatic robots.
Yep.
Because it turns out those are a lot fucking easier to go. It's like, animating a bunch of toys or something before you're good at humans.
uh-huh. Anyway, are we good there?
Anyway, this rules. Check it out.
Speaking of things that rule and have integrated 3D animation,
It's Dandadan!
Dandadan.
Dandadan.
Shoo. I feel like talking too much about Dandadan is like a waste, just because this is like one of the big ones for this season.
I feel like anybody who would be interested in this has already seen it because they knew about it since before it existed.
Nonetheless, I will endeavor to give you the pitch.
Hey.
She believes in ghosts and doesn't believe in aliens. He believes in aliens and doesn't believe in ghosts because ghosts are dumb as hell. They spark off each other due to a coincidental happenstance meeting in high school and then proceed to dare one another to go and experience the thing that they believe exists while still not having any proof that it is real. That is the night that they both find out that in fact both of them are right and that ghosts are real and that aliens are real.
I admit, I thought after the first 2 lines you were going to jump straight to, they fight ghosts and aliens.
Well, that's how I did the blog article. But I did a blog article about Dandadan as a manga, as the whole thing I've read so far, which, Dandadan's not done. This is one of many
This
series.
is so getting a second season.
I can't imagine this series not getting a large number of seasons. I know it's a bad thing to invoke, but it reminds me a lot of Bleach in that same way that the manga just reproduce the manga up to point X and you are going to everything up to that point is going to be good television.
That kind of was the exact problem with Bleach, though.
Yeah, and then they ran over their skis and you started getting filler arcs which are designed to give Kubo Tite time to recover because the manga industry is a machine that eats artists and shits manga. It's a
Turns
whole
out
problem.
you can't recover when you're being overworked and creatively bullied.
Yeah, it's a whole problem of its own. Ellie, come on, you it. Yeah. So Dandadan is an anime that gets to live in the space of almost too obviously good to be worth discussing. It's charming. It's funny. The action is extremely well directed. When it uses an idea, it uses it well.
The animation is spectacular, and the visual language employed in that, not just for the sake of just depicting things in a really enjoyable manner, but also for the sake of metaphor and foreshadowing, and it is firing on all cylinders all the fucking time.
And now here's the point where I just very gently feather the brake and go, by the way, Dandadan is a series about adolescent sexuality.
Boy, is it.
It is really about adolescent sexuality.
If somehow you are one of the people who thought maybe you'd give this a shot who hasn't already watched it, do be aware there's some pretty fucking rough sexual assault imagery,
Yep.
right off the bat.
Yep.
And
Body integrity fear is a big one too.
yeah, and I mean this resolves in a satisfactory... It's so weird to talk about this because I want to say it doesn't feel sleazy, and as I say that, I'm like, how does it not, though? But
this is a show where you will see these teenagers in their underwear a lot.
yeah, and they're not subtle about how everything they're doing is part of that metaphor for adolescent sexuality either. That's
not even a bit. And a lot of that is because the source material it's building out of, the things it's drawing on, are in many cases themselves folk stories and conspiracy theories that are expressing various anxieties that this show then centers back on adolescent sexuality.
turns out a whole shitload of folklore is based around sex or a fear of sex or
what if a
injustices centered on sex.
What if a woman had opinions about sex, but she was old? It is a fascinating melange of familiar components. Like if you know ghost stories as a genre, chances are good you've heard some of the Japanese ghost stories that go into making up Dandadan, and it's very good at expressing those parts in its story, and then it will throw in effectively completely new things like, hey, what if a piece of school equipment was haunted? There is a lot of stuff in the manga, knowing where it's going, where it continues to escalate and expand. The first season stops at basically a major point of introducing something very important. If you're a manga fan, we get Ira's introduction, we get her first arc, but then we have to wait for the next one. But like it's so good for a show that routinely talks about a teenager's testicles.
Yeah, like, once again, I come back to the it doesn't feel safe. What I mean is, I don't feel like it's being done to turn you on.
But again, even if it is being done in that way, because, like, I don't know if it is or it isn't, it's being done in a way where it's very clear we know that this stuff is stuff that teenagers talk about and think about and engage with, and we're going to talk about and engage with it enough to make it clear that, like, we are doing that, but we're not going to, like, show you. We're going to drive up to the line and we're going to make a point and stop. Because, like, a lot of the things, the fears it's talking about, fears of bodily integrity, the fears of, is my body wrong? Am I becoming a man wrong? Am I being a woman wrong? These are things that the story all mixes together and uses ghost and horror imagery, ghost and conspiracy theory imagery to play with, while also making it clear that a lot of those theories are themselves dumb. Like, every one of the conspiracies that it talks about, because with any conspiracy media, there is a long tail snaking off in the distance where you know if you keep following it, it's going to eventually get to someone shouting, "The Jews!"
Yeah, of course.
Which is why Dandadan very pleasantly snips it off at that point and goes, "No, this isn't about the Jews. This is about, do I have a weird dick? I'm really concerned at the age of 15 if I have a weird dick."
Why are the aliens so interested in my weird dick?
The aliens have weird dicks. Am I like them? Is that what I look like to girls? The girl is now going to directly compare me and the aliens side by side to determine if my weird ways are as bad as their weird ways. And, all the aliens, which are conspicuously men, who are identical, who have power, and who are fitting into a generalized mold. Maybe there is a way to be myself that is not like that, and also doesn't involve thinking too much about whether or not I have a weird dick. It is fascinating the stuff Dandadan is doing, and it's doing it all as a rom-com.
Come to think of it, the fact that so much of the yokai stuff connects to what if a woman was upset about something too much. Like, the factions are directly gendered, aren't they? And that's why they are key to the protagonists in the way that they are.
There is a plot that comes up later in the manga which kind of directly contrasts the nerd boy who thinks that knowing about these things is itself inherently a personality versus, what if I wanted to kiss Godzilla, though? Like, is that okay? And it does stuff with that, and it's very cool.
Godzilla's neat. I think it's fine if you want to kiss.
We will talk about that when the anime gets to that point,
Yeah, don't spoil this shit.
Yeah.
This is... I mean, just the fact that I said that should be an indicator of how good this is, because I don't normally give much of a shit about spoilers.
Now, there is one other thing about the animation and making of Dandadan that I think that... I want to say you noticed it, but I might have noticed it and then you confirmed it.
Oh no, this is your theory.
Okay. So my theory is that the 3D CG is used for the aliens only, and all of the yokai are traditionally animated. So when you see a character and they are traditionally animated, you can work out whether or not they are a yokai or not.
Which, I mean, we'd have to rewatch it again to be 100% sure, but... seems to have borne out so far. I mean, there's probably some amount of CG involved in
almost certainly
but the noticeably 3D CG.
Yeah, there is a prominence to that's one of the other things that's really fun. We're at the stage of 3D CG where the flashing signifiers of this is 3D CG is something that we are now more likely to be able to turn off if we want to. There was a shot with the reflection of a monster in a window, which I don't want to say you gasped, but like you stopped us and we like paid attention to that, and we had a look at a sequence where where one of the 3D monsters actually did a thing as characters are moving towards a window and you can see the monster's reflection in the window. Do you remember this?
I don't recall what we're talking about.
It's all good then.
But you're probably right.
Yeah.
I remember, I can't remember the specific moment, but I remember there was a point where there was a reflection and I was like, oh, they didn't have to do that at all.
Yeah, they did. That's it.
It was completely unnecessary.
Yeah. Yes, I misremember. You didn't pause it. It was like, you mentioned they didn't have to do that. I was like, have to do what? Pause, go back. Oh, I see.
I can't remember what it was. We should rewatch this show so I can find out what it was.
And every time we rewatch it, we listen to the theme. Which, by the way, what episode has the theme at the 16-minute mark?
Fucking love it. It's so a huge part of this show's charm is its confidence, which it is right to have, because it is a banger in every way. This is like Pluto levels of a perfect anime right now.
Yeah. And, you know, I can't say how long it can hold that up. I can't say how long it'll sustain it, but hopefully everyone involved is getting paid well for working on what is clearly an absolute corker.
I wish it all the best. I enjoy seeing Science Saru at the height of their powers.
And we on?
Let's go.
How I attended an all-guys mixer.
Oh, we're gradually coasting back down this hill, I see. Oh wait, I gotta try and read this name. What do we got? Gokon ni itatte ona ga inakatta hanashi. There you go. That's probably a literal translation, I have to assume.
Yeah. Alright, so the synopsis of this show is that 3 fairly ordinary dudes are invited to go to a club by 3 women who they know well enough to accept invites to a club with them, but not so well they recognize them, that they then go to this club that turns out to be a drag king bar, whereupon they have an uncomfortably pleasant time hanging out with drag kings, doing things with them that are flirty and intimate, and these 3 boys then have to grapple with the concept that, well, I know it's a woman, and she told me she's a woman, but I did just flirt with them, or get flirted with by them, so now I have to have anxiety about whether or not I am gay. This concept, which you may recognize as being an episode, is then stretched out for 11 more.
This is fairly accurate. I mean,
I don't even hate this show. I will point out the ways that it's dumb, but I'm not trying to sit here and go like, well, no one should watch this show, it's trash. It's fine.
I will correct you on a few details.
Please, go on.
I do believe it's stated at the beginning that only in this picture, our central 2 characters know each other. So he has brought his friends and she has brought her friends to a mixer, which is a common thing to do.
He does not recognize her out of costume.
Well, no, but you'll notice that they retain that trait even after seeing the... Okay, the huge spoiler, everyone. They look the same when they're girls, except they have long hair and they don't wear boy clothing.
Yeah.
They are the fucking same.
Yeah.
But these 3 bozos can't tell them from pictures of themselves, so I'm not going to put any weight on that fact. And also, main character Guy is so oblivious. There are 3 relationships in this anime. One is blonde bozo boy and purple-haired horny girl, who immediately hook up because he doesn't give a shit. He is blessedly unaware of any of the gender complications and is just like, she asked me to pose for drawing reference photos. Yay, she likes me. And things progress perfectly nicely from there for these 2. The second is the 2 characters at the farthest edge of this picture, who are...
I would say the central cause of drama?
Possibly the dumbest people alive?
Yep.
They are the central cause of drama. She's kind of got a Sun thing, am I inadequately feminine thing, a very light version of it though, not like a hardcore one. And he's the character out of these 3 who actually does seem to grapple with the idea of, does this, like, genuinely does this mean I'm bi? And that would be quite interesting, except for the fact that he seems to be terrified of that idea, and at no point does the show go, but if you were, that would be fine. The show just lets him be afraid of this and treat it like a bad thing the whole way through.
And also, notably, the only people he talks about this with are people who have clearly never heard of bisexuality.
Yeah,
even though there are 3 cross-dressers he knows who he doesn't talk to about this.
Well, I mean, this show appears to have no concept of gender fluidity either.
Yeah.
Like, this... the resolution to this for him seems to be that he discovers the crux of the problem when his sister understands bisexuality, because she's the one who's like, oh, I didn't expect you to be into a guy. That's neat. I support you.
Yeah.
His sister is great. But when she jokingly is like, oh, when you talk about worrying about whether you're into the girl version or the boy version, it sounds like you're worried about cheating. And that seems to be what he latches onto, is like how to characterize this problem and then resolve it. So like he can't even bring himself to perceive that this one person could have boy mode and girl mode without being a different person.
Yep.
He's really annoying. And we spend most of the series dwelling on
most
their
of the
relationship.
last part of the series, I will point out, the 3 of the final episodes are very much wound around this.
We float around between the other characters, but predominantly these 2 are the source of drama, because the other 2 are a solved problem, and the central 2 characters here are a total fucking non-event.
Yep.
She spends the entire show working her arse off to flirt with him at every opportunity, and he, I think in like the second last episode, someone jokes about her flirting with him, and I offhandedly went, she was flirting with me? And
then,
he immediately failed to realize that she had been flirting with him.
Because he's a big dumb bozo.
It's not a joke, it's just text.
And, yeah.
So, like, they never get any kind of resolution or even, like, stumbling towards a conclusion, which means we just get left with the 2 really annoying ones who kind of float and bounce off each other and have the stupidest worries about the stupidest things, and the 2 who are actually enjoyable but are not going to be the source of any drama.
So, there are 16 volumes of this manga.
And I don't understand that. I really did assume this would be 4-koma or like page-a-day shit.
And the anime doesn't cover all of them.
Aye.
Yeah, there's more.
I mean, it has
after
to not
this.
cover all of them. You must have done something with these relationships, surely.
Yep.
Something!
But I will tell you why I watched all of it. Suo's pretty hot.
Yeah, the girls are slamming hotties. All 3 of them, they're great.
Your Honor, the girls boy moding are slamming hotties.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Outside of boy mode, they are perfectly nice looking ordinary people.
Boy mode is contained within the girl.
I know, I'm just making it clear that I'm not like, they are just flat out slamming hotties, period. Like, no, I was very much watching this for Suo boy moding. And,
I think it's a fairly deliberate downgrade when they, like...
Yeah.
I don't believe that their girl mode designs are supposed to be as appealing as their boy mode
They're just
designs.
fine. But also, the boys they're interested in are...
They're pretty boring.
Extremely boring.
Yeah.
The eternal quandary of romance anime, in that they just don't bother to make the guys as interesting or as appealing as the women, unless they're explicitly only about the guys, in which case the girl tends to suffer, and that's why bisexual disasters like Baccarina in
bless her.
Villainess is like a real high watermark, and also, I can't believe I'm going to continually invoke this as a good show. Shikimori is not just a cutie. The boy there is actually hot.
This does remind me that this is very much like Dom Host Club.
Yeah.
It's got such distinct inspiration from Uran, but Uran is actually a really fucking smart show.
Shockingly
If
so.
you're bothering to pay the slightest bit of attention to what it's got going on beneath the surface. Whereas this is sort of the as shallow as it seems to be on the surface version of that. It is adults instead of teenagers, which is nice, but the couple we spend most of our time being concerned about are very adolescent in how they interact with one another.
Yeah.
So, kind of ruins that part of it.
What I will say from having read some of the manga and compared it is everything that you can imagine being a splash page is really good. Like, the manga is good at splash pages, and the anime has this great thing of like, oh, well, this was a splash page in the manga, so we're just going to do a slow pan up this character holding a hamster. Like, that's great.
That's the reason I stuck with this. It looks very good.
Yeah, when they get to go ham on the outfits for the boy moding girls, they tend to look great. The guys never seem to put a shit into anything.
Also, whenever they're talking about the performance angle of this, when they're talking about the archetypes.
That's the most interesting part of the whole show.
That shit's really good.
That's the thing that's sucking me in. I'm like, oh, are we going to start getting like a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes metafiction about the nature of archetypes in Japanese language and theatre? All right, I am down. And the next episode, they went to the fucking zoo.
Nope.
We good?
Trying to think if anything remains to say. Oh, there is something that remains to say about this. Also, fuck me, the difficulty of pronouns.
Yeah, translation. This is an example of a show which does not work in English the way that it works in Japanese. Because in English, the pronouns for a person that are gendered externally. I would refer to a person by their pronouns. So they would not refer to, and they would only refer, them referring to themselves with their pronouns is a little weird.
You would call me she, I would call me me.
Yes.
Only one of those implies any gender.
Whereas in Japanese, there's a lot more gendering in the personal pronouns that people use. So, you have this sequence of these guys referring to these women who are boy moding in a way that in English we would probably want to use a neutral pronoun, probably, to properly represent what they are talking about and the way they are gendering them in Japanese, but that comes across as deliberately choosing a non-gendered pronoun for someone doing a gendered performance, which in English comes across as othering and devaluing that gendered performance. So, behold, the limitations of the English language.
The sheer number of instances where they unambiguously refer to them as she, and then the very next bit of dialogue is fretting about how they're not girls.
Yeah.
Is
like... there is in fact one point where the subtitles say, I can't... it was something along the lines of, but she's so hot, but she's not a girl. It's like, what the fuck did you just say? That sentence doesn't make... Diagram that sentence, mate.
And just the number of times that gendering got added on completely unnecessarily as like, you know, hey everyone kind of thing turns into hey boys.
Yes. Similarly, there's points where in Japanese where, for example, a single word gets used and it does imply a sentence's worth of meaning because Japanese is like that, but the subtitle has put gendered pronouns in that sentence. It's real awkward, and it's a thing where you kind of have to learn a bit about the... And, like, this is an unashamedly Japanese series.
Oh,
like,
sure.
You're not gonna...
This is not a problem with it as conceived. It is frustrating to know enough that something is definitely being lost in this translation, and that you can't know whether that changes how it hits. Because
translation is hard.
I want this to be better, and maybe it is better, but the only version of it I can engage with isn't.
Yeah.
Errrrr.
Again, translation is just hard.
It's hard.
We good?
We should move on.
We wound up watching Windbreaker.
Which down has listed the alternative title as Windbreaker, but I'm going to say Bohurin.
Because
it is also called that.
Yeah, we talked about Windbreaker in the second season video, which I think went up the day Fox and I are recording this. Windbreaker is a show about a boy coming to a town to join a delinquent school to fight his way to the top, and finding out that in fact they're all a bunch of extremely supportive anarchists who are there to protect their town and get into interesting street wars with other boys in other parts of town who are themselves all struggling with communication issues that are then expressed through beating the shit out of each other. I really like Windbreaker. I've read a bunch of the manga. The anime delivers on the manga really well. And the only problem is that if you fall for its trick, if you looked at it and went, oh, this looks like a cool delinquent high school story show where this guy's going to go through a tournament and fight his way to the top and I'm going to get to follow his arc. Yeah, sorry, no. He doesn't fight as much as you'd think, and most of the fights are instead about crying at people.
I'm not a connoisseur of delinquent anime. But it is my understanding that a proper delinquent anime is supposed to be about the power of friendship, as expressed
Eventually,
by
yes.
punching people in the face.
Yes. But, like, you're not getting the typical, like, sorting algorithm tournament arc structure here. This is much more about him gearing up to fight someone to show that he is the best, and them going, "That's cool, buddy!" And him being like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah, so it's like a good
Yeah.
version of that.
Yeah.
No good show immediately does a tournament arc.
Yep.
That's a stupid idea. God, what show would do that? It definitely wouldn't be massively popular and get 9 fucking seasons or some shit.
All the problems I mentioned about the original the original manga are still present. There is one woman character. She rules, but also she is a tertiary character to the main core of the story. This is a story about boys getting bloody and crying on each other.
I mean, that's also just how delinquent anime do.
Yeah, and I guess a complaint that came up that I'm now voicing Fox's complaint, but I'm folding it into mine here, because I do think it's something that could be valued, is like, just make everyone 20% hotter. Just a bit hotter.
Yeah, I could have done with that.
I think Suo's hot. I think that's a perfectly good place for the hotness to be calibrated around. But, like, Takagi's meant to be hot, and, like, yeah, he looks like a Togepi Gijinka.
More like a Toga kiss, really.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there's like a light sort of dusting of eye candy, but, nothing I would save pictures of from the horny image sites or anything,
Yeah, like, in this show, Sugishita, Nire, Suo, and Sakura, and, like, that's kind of it for the hot ones.
Nire? Hell
And, like,
no.
but that's the thing, like, okay, in which case, you just discard the hot ones down to maybe 3 of them. The point is that,
him
like,
with the headphones is probably in 3rd place.
Oof. Alright, fair enough then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am putting Sugishita up there. I don't think he's supposed to be hot. I just really like long hair, so...
I was putting Sugishita up in there as well. I think Sugishita's hot.
Once again, I don't think he's supposed to be hot.
But then again, I also think Cho is hot, and, like, this is not a show... Like, there's very particular sense of taste.
Which one's that?
He's the weird little feral monkey boy.
Oh.
He's the one you don't like because he's nuts.
Nope.
Yeah.
Crazy little boys, not for me.
Yeah, there's a lot about this that I think is, like, targeted to me specifically from a period of my life where I did fantasize about the idea of, well, what if we just punched the shit out of each other until things made sense? That would make sense to me.
It's an alluring fantasy. That's why this genre is what it is.
Yeah, and I like this show a lot, but we are now standing on the precipice of, oh no, how are they going to translate the non-binary character?
I mean, stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah.
We will only find out if and when a season 2 shows up.
Because she showed up as a group shot in the last episode, but... and the next season doesn't start for another couple of days, so... Oh well.
Oh, so there is a second one confirmed.
Oh, yeah.
That's nice for them.
Yeah.
They deserve it. This was really good stuff.
Really
good fight scenes.
Yes. If you view a manga as, like, the landing strip for an anime kind of thing, like, you want to make sure that there's track in front of you, like, they did a really good job with picking Windbreaker because, like, don't be wrong, they're going to catch up because the release schedules are just different. But, like, Windbreaker Windbreaker is a good long run in front of you. You can get probably 2 or 3 years worth of material out of this. Whew! You good?
Yeah, I suppose I was going to carry on a little more about the...
Make them hotter!
No, about the representation of community building and anarchy and mutual aid and whatnot. Because, like, this is like, D&D adventurers level of everyone in town, when you show up, offers you free food. Because... If you didn't save their grandma last week, you saved their best friend's grandma, or their kid, or their cat, or, like... It's just a really fun representation of something that is, a lesser anime would consider naive and stupid. It also explains how all these bozos are eating, for the most part.
Yeah. Because, like, they're not going to school and getting school lunches.
I assume they don't live with their families. In fact, my one problem with this is that their school has no school.
Yeah, it's not a school.
It's not a school.
It's an abandoned school
just
district.
a clubhouse.
There's no school.
And
There's
they
no teachers.
have school structures for some reason, but nobody learns anything except how to truly know themselves through the wholesome power of fighting.
And gardening.
And
You will respect Umamiya's tomato plants. The cucumbers and the spinach.
God. The metaphor power of the garden and the opening sequence and everything is off the fucking charts.
You can just imagine the writers sitting there going like, I can't do something that obvious, can I? And then as they're saying that, they're just drawing increasingly large circles around it like it's a bullseye.
Well, I don't know, Talen. Would you consider it common knowledge? Does everyone know that tomatoes are considered not a beginner plant, quite difficult and contrary actually, because they can't grow well without really robust, proper support around them?
God, I love this show. And like a lot of what I love about it is just like eventually it all comes down to two boys punching each other in the rain until they cry and then almost but not quite kiss.
Almost but not quite kiss.
Bro,
it's a shame they won't kiss, but you know, not everything can be Braver, right?
Like Umamiya comes so close.
So close.
In not even in the arcs you've seen, in the manga at the point we're at right now, Umamiya comes so close. Similarly, Sagishida is sitting around going like, what? I wanna fight his problems away from him. That doesn't mean I'm... Shut up!
I just want to punch everything that makes him sad in the face.
Yeah. Sagishida's great. Shall we move on?
What have we got left?
We have everything left. Ranma 1/2.
Wow, this is... I guess I shouldn't be surprised after the Urusei Yatsura reboot, but I'm astonished that this exists. What are you looking at me like that for?
What's the Japanese title, Fox?
Ranma Nibunoichi.
There you go.
Everybody knows that.
Ranma Nibunoichi is a anime about a girl named Akane Tendo who is, in her context, in her life, the scariest martial artist of a generation and quite possibly the most powerful person she's ever met. Then into her life is introduced a arranged marriage with her dad's best friend Genma's son, Ranma. Ranma, as it turns up, when she arrives, is in fact a hot girl with gigantic nippleless boobs. And they bond momentarily and have a friendship moment over martial arts after Akane realizes, well, I can't get engaged to a girl because this is 1980s Japan. Whereupon, shock, twist, it turns out that Ranma is in fact a boy, and Akane now has complicated feelings.
God, Talen spoilers!
This is a 2024 to 2025, and hopefully onward, remake of the 1989 to 1992 Ranma 1/2 anime, kind of, but is really a anime conversion of the 1982 to 1980. God, no, 19. I shouldn't try and give dates off the top of my head. The Ranma
infamous 80s manga.
Infamous 80s through 90s manga.
Originator
Ranma 1/2.
of the wacky rom-com martial arts genre.
Yeah, do you want to know where harem anime came from? It was codified by Ranma.
Well,
It was codified by Ranma.
I feel like some shoujo was doing harem shit before.
You will want to check some of the dates on some of those assumptions.
Okay. I feel like harem is attributed to. I feel like the reverse in reverse harem is misplaced. Is all I'm saying.
You might be right on that one, but also, Ranma is older than people think.
Oh, this is old as shit. You can tell if you watch the original anime.
Yep, because that anime came out after years of Ranma were out, and it still looks old as shit.
It looks old as shit.
Ranma 1/2, like, there is no way for me to be normal about this anime. There is no way for me to talk about this anime in a way that talks about it as an approachable thing for a new person to encounter in the year of our Luigi 2025.
I was gonna say, should we maybe provide the, life-changing context in which we relate to this.
Well, I'm cisgender, which is like one of the big things that you would normally expect that conversation to lead to. But by all means, if you want to, go for it. But
well, no deep explanation necessary, but like this is a fandom that contributed substantially to us finding each other.
Yeah.
And certainly to us admitting to each other.
Yeah. I have been a fan of Ranma since I was 13. And that means next year that will be 30 years. Ranma 1/2 is structural to not just my experience of fandom, but of what fandom meant in late 90s online spaces. Ranma was one of the big two fanfiction corpuses. Anything you wanted could be found doing a crossover with Ranma. People were writing Ranma fanfiction who had never watched or read Ranma. It was its own wholly distinct category of fanon-fueled material in the English-speaking world.
See, it's funny you should bring that up because I was going to add on to this. I've been a fan of Ranma since he was about 13. No, that's not quite accurate. But I saw or read an astonishingly small amount of this, but I saturated in its fandom.
Yeah.
Because that's what was there if you were in an anime fandom.
Yeah.
So, for a substantial part of our lives, the news groups around Ranma
Yep.
were like the main destination for our creative output, even though I couldn't even rightly be called a fan of this series as such.
You have Ranma 1/2 universe OCs.
Yeah.
Without having read Ranma.
I mean, I've certainly read it now, but yeah, at the time.
One of the other things about Ranma, like, to give you an idea of the scale of this thing, in the newsgroups period, which is kind of like a modern day social media, like, when you think in terms of feeds, like, you open it up and every day there's new shit. That's how newsgroups tended to work. Well-peopled newsgroups would have thousands of new posts being threaded into positions, and you're like, oh, I care about this one, and I'll download this one as well. Like, that kind of thing. There was a newsgroup that was explicitly just for fanfiction, which is rec.arts.anime.creative. That was just for people writing fanfiction. And that had a very loose tagging system. You didn't have requirements to post there beyond a very small amount of structural subject line stuff. Like, if you didn't structure your subject line correctly, they would go, you're probably a robot or an automated, we're not going to accept that gets dropped. But otherwise, largely, it was just subject line, the required header component, and then the title of the fanfiction, and then people would use a very small number of tags. There was one community tag that was required if you made it, which is if you made a Ranma fic and you didn't tag it Ranma, you would get a note from people in a secondary news group pinging you about it, going, hey, just so you know, you fucked up. Because there was so much Ranma fanfiction, people wanted to be able to filter it out. Ranma 1/2's central conceit is it is a magical martial arts world where curses and magical items and exotic techniques like magical shampoo and ridiculous acupuncture techniques all exist and are real. And Ranma has a curse that turns him into a girl when he is splashed with cold water, and a boy when he's splashed with hot water. His dad gets turned into a panda when he's splashed with cold water, and into a man when he gets splashed with hot water. This hook, like this central premise of weird martial arts and a very small amount of magical bullshit, is then expanded on for 38 volumes. And those 38 volumes, at the end, there is a point where there are a lot of people going, man, we really needed more manga to build out a bunch of these other characters. There are numerous characters introduced in the last third of the manga where it's like, man, can we just have a couple more stories with them? Can we just have a bit more? But Takahashi wanted to move on. And then she moved on to Inuyasha. And,
what a foolish move. That could never go off the same way that Rama did.
Yeah, and happened to kind of rewrite the isekai genre as well, which is also just shocking. No, this anime, the 2024 rendition of Ranma 1/2, it's real good.
This is a really beautiful readaptation.
Oh my god, it looks good.
With, yeah, just like a tremendous amount of care put into interpreting the original artwork in a way that works in animation.
And some surprisingly acceptable breaks from the manga in a structural way.
I was gonna say also in a characterization kind of way, like just a few nice considerations, like maybe not all the Chinese characters
That's exactly what I was going to go for.
Dum-dum voice as their defining character trait.
The Maoist Chinese iconography is gone as well. Ranma doesn't have his Mao shirt, which is like whatever. Like it was a cute thing, but it's not like I think he wore it because he was himself a committed communist. But like it was just one of those things that she put on him to make him look exotic. Rumiko Takahashi, the artist, she put Ranma in occasionally things like a Maoist Chinese uniform with the stereotypical hat with a star on it and everything. And like they don't have that anymore, which is a bit of a bummer because those were perfectly cute looks, but also like who cares?
You wouldn't bring it up.
And the Joseikyou Guide and Shampoo don't speak in broken nonsense language anymore, which is nice.
I mean, I don't know how bad their original dialogue was in Japanese, but it certainly
I've been told it was pretty rough.
Okay, yeah. It was sure as shit rough in the translation, and like, as a choice.
Yeah. And I also understand that now the way they've handled Shampoo is she just has a ridiculously thick accent. So it does come across as very hicky.
I think even not speaking Japanese, you can tell that.
Yeah. But oh god, yeah, just it's such a weird thing because like it is a time capsule of an anime. It is set in 1980s Japan.
Oh yeah, everyone's pants are so high up.
Yep. The school uniforms are so much more sensible than you're used to. because the anime that made a push towards girls' school uniforms being shorter hadn't come out when this manga started.
It is really funny to me to look at this compared to Evangelion.
Yeah.
Because this feels profoundly 80s and Ava feels profoundly 90s. But if you're paying attention to the design, that school uniform is almost the exact same garment.
Yeah, because
probably
it's a
because it's the exact fucking school uniform that you would be wearing.
Uh-huh.
But it's all just come out in the art style.
God, it's there are some things in the Ranma 1/2 rewatch that are definitely recontextualized. Like I've been spending the past few years on my blog revisiting Ranma and steadily reevaluating various opinions I had as a younger person. The degree to which I realized that Akane got done dirty, not just by the anime adaptation, but also by fans hyper-realizing that.
Very much by the fandom, yeah.
That's one part of it, but also another thing I didn't really appreciate until I rewatched it this time is Ryoga sucks. One of the worst traits about Ranma is that he tolerates Ryoga. And I don't just mean like, later on in the parts of the manga, Ryoga does some really fucked up shit. I mean, like, Ryoga ignores everyone talking to him and giving him directions. He disregards perfectly good advice, and he treats people like things. He's awful.
I mean, everyone here is a bozo.
Yes.
But you're right. His does hit in a slightly different way, and if you apply the rules of, humans to it, he does not come out of it looking good.
No.
And I also wonder if that's certainly a factor in Akane's bitchification in the fandom. Because, look at poor nice Ryoga. All he wants is a look in. And
yeah, back in the day, I definitely thought of Ryoga as kind of a nice guy who had one little weird social, problem, which is he couldn't bring himself to admit to the P-chan thing. But, that's not a little thing, and he keeps doing it, so it's not a little thing anyway.
It's not being able to admit to it is one thing, but, aggressively using it to kind of creep on a girl?
Yeah, doing it repeatedly is the thing. If you can recognize that it's wrong, but you don't have the courage to admit you did it, that's one thing. It's the continuing to do it that looks a lot worse in obvious hindsight, because I'm, when I was young, I used to identify with Ryoga a lot because, hey, look at him. He's so depressed he gets magical
Angry
powers.
young man.
Yeah. Though, of course, my particular cart in this particular Zelda race... My
Has
particular,
not showed up yet.
my particular blue dog in this particular Zelda race has not yet shown up and will not show up for many years.
Neither has
And
mine.
oh boy,
but
does he not age well when you know what a slur is.
I live to hope that if this continues going as well as it is going, that maybe we do get Konatsu this time around.
Yeah.
But, I'm not gonna hold my breath either.
One of the things about this show that is a good thing to look forward to is that if they continue with the trend of sticking to the manga as closely as they have with the only minor adjustments, like, they named 2 of the minor characters. Fine.
Ooh, yeah, that's one of the other things. Like, not only is this trying very, very hard to, tangibly hard to be respectful of the artwork, they're also, absolutely sticking tight as shit to the manga content.
Sometimes
they are
frame
not
by frame.
fucking with this, yeah.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that. I like it a lot. But the thing is, if we only get one more season of about the same length that covers about the same material, that's all bangers. Like, yes, obviously, I wanted to go all the way to the end. I want to see the fucking Saffron arc. I want to see I want to see the Musk Dynasty arc animated. I want to see what Herb looks like in motion. That would be so cool. I want to see all 3 of the Pantyhose Taro arcs. I want to see the Ryu Kumon arc.
We must at least be going as far as Ukiyo, so...
Yeah, you can't... they very much made a point of shampoos in the opening of this one, so I was like, okay, we're gonna make sure shampoo is coming, even if she's only showing up for 1 episode at the end. So, you've got to get the full harem out there. So, obviously, we've got to get to Konatsu. No, joking. But, this isn't an example of a show where I'm gonna be like, oh, when they stop, oh, it's such a shame because they were just getting to where it gets good. This series is good all the way through. It has highlights. It has absolute favorites. It has things I truly love. And I do wonder, how are they going to handle some of the really, one-shotty style stories? Like the cursed drawing or the or the cursed horse ghost. Are those going to be half episodes? Because, that would be a cool way to do it.
That would be there are definitely plots I can think of where it's like, well, do we really need more than half an episode to deal with? Do I have to marry a monkey or not?
Yeah. And, those are fun show. It's a fun show. It's got a fun gimmick. Opened a lot of eggs up. That's a thing that happened. Boy, is that a whole source of conversation on its own. But yeah, we got Ranma 1/2, the 2024 remake. I like it a lot. I think they did a really good job. I look forward to more of it. And I can't be normal about it, which makes it very hard to talk about in a succinct way, which is why we have spent half an hour talking about just this one show.
I feel like we've probably spent half an hour on a couple of these shows.
Less than you think. Turns out that we have a lot to talk about Blue Box when we're mad.
Anyway, yeah, this is quite good. It's probably worth a watch. Hopefully Netflix will let it exist for more than 2 seasons.
Yeah, and if Netflix doesn't, hopefully it gets wrestled off Netflix by someone else in Japan with the resurgence of all these things.
It is a grand time for remaking things that were popular when anime first hit the West. That's for sure.
Anyway, you good?
Yeah, I think we have about said everything to say.
And with that, that's it. Those are all the shows from 2024's final season that we watched.
And let's not kid ourselves. A couple of those shows were not from 2024. Well, one of them certainly wasn't. Look, what I'm saying is we didn't want a cannonball Blue Box because it was too boring, so we had to find something fun to mix in with it.
Yep. And, I'm glad we watched Windbreakers.
Yeah.
There are some other shows that I was kind of interested in at the time. Dragon Ball Daima was one of them, but I couldn't find a good place to watch all of it. And ultimately, the little bit of resistance I got was enough to discourage me from checking it out. And, what is it called? Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Story 2, I think.
That's not the full title, but it's close enough.
Yeah. I'm a little shy of that one because I think that the first one was a perfect story. And I think that if you expand it, you run the risk of breaking what made it great.
Oh,
but,
interesting.
You know, maybe I'll check it out and we might see it might come up later as one of the ringers for the next year.
Okay.
You have fun?
Yeah. I always love talking about anime with you.
And I love getting to watch anime with you.